As new tariffs take effect, American businesses are facing mounting cost pressures. Could current trade policies push the U.S. economy toward a new crisis? Jamie Dimon, CEO of JPMorgan Chase, has warned that new tariffs are steering the U.S. economy toward a period of stagflation, high inflation paired with slow growth. He believes financial markets remain complacent and have yet to fully price in the impact of tariffs that could reach 145% on Chinese imports. Dimon also noted many trade partners are turning away from the U.S., instead signing agreements elsewhere, weakening American exports. A survey by Allianz found that 68% of global exporters are actively working to reduce exposure to the U.S. market due to the unpredictability of its trade policies. For American consumers, the consequences are already taking shape: higher interest rates on mortgages, car loans, and credit cards, while real income declines, placing further strain on everyday living expenses. Under pressure from the new tariffs, companies like Subaru and Walmart have confirmed price increases. Meanwhile, Home Depot is holding prices steady on select items, but eliminating lower-margin products, gradually pushing affordable goods off the shelves. Notably, the sub-$25,000 vehicle segment, once popular with middle-income consumers, is disappearing, as the 25% import tariff eliminates profit margins in that category. For consumers, this means higher prices and fewer choices, especially in rural and suburban areas, where incomes are modest and alternatives are limited. Many small businesses are being heavily impacted by tariffs ranging from 30 to 145%. Beth Benieke, CEO of baby product company Busy Baby, was forced to launch a crowdfunding campaign just to cover $48,000 in unexpected tariffs on imported goods from China. But beyond the cost, the greater challenge lies in the instability of the policy environment. Constant shifts in tariff rates make production planning nearly impossible, leading to supply chain delays at ports and factories. This not only undermines the competitiveness of small firms, but also threatens jobs and the diversity of products available to consumers. Some officials in the Trump administration have admitted that unpredictability is being used as a negotiating strategy to gain leverage with trade partners. However, this approach is paralyzing global supply chains. As businesses cannot predict what changes may come from week to week, in response, the Small Business Liberation Act, a bill proposing tariff exemptions for small businesses, is under discussion, though its passage remains uncertain. For small and medium-sized businesses, this uncertainty is discouraging investment, delaying procurement, and increasing financial risk. Ultimately, these effects ripple through the economy, raising prices, disrupting inventories, and affecting the everyday shopping experience for millions of Americans. For the first time in over a century, the United States no longer holds its historically top-tier credit rating. Is the global economic balance of power now shifting into China's hands? On May 16, 2025, Moody's officially downgraded the credit rating of the United States from AAA to A1. This marks the first time since 1919 that the U.S. no longer holds the highest rating from all three major agencies, Moody's, S&P, and Fitch. The primary reason? A rapid rise in national debt, projected to reach 134% of GDP by 2035, if no significant corrective measures are taken. At the same time, 30-year U.S. Treasury bond yields have surpassed 5%, the highest level since October 2023, reflecting declining confidence in America's ability to manage its debt. For ordinary Americans, this downgrade is not just a Wall Street issue. It means higher interest rates on mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards. For retirees and those on fixed incomes, everyday expenses may become more burdensome as borrowing grows more expensive without any rise in income. At the same time, China, once the largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasury bonds, has reduced its holdings to $765 billion, the lowest level in years. Notably, China has now fallen behind the United Kingdom in total U.S. debt holdings, signaling a strategic shift in financial policy. This sell-off reflects diminishing confidence in the U.S. government's fiscal control and long-term economic stability. If this trend spreads to other countries, such as India, Brazil, or major European investment funds, the U.S. could face an uncontrolled rise in interest rates. For consumers, 3 question marks. That means higher borrowing costs across the board, from homes and vehicles to everyday credit, placing even more strain on household budgets and long-term savings. The Trump administration is currently advancing large-scale tax cut packages projected to add between $3 trillion and $5 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. Meanwhile, revenues from trade tariffs and customs policies have fallen short of expectations, leading to a widening budget deficit. With rising expenditures and insufficient revenue, the U.S. faces a difficult dilemma: borrow more to cover obligations while facing higher interest rates. If this pattern continues, the federal government may be forced to make cuts in sensitive areas such as healthcare, Social Security, and education support. For older citizens, these changes could weaken access to public services, disrupt Medicare benefits, and erode essential post-retirement support systems. The loss of top-tier credit status affects not only the federal government, but also has far-reaching implications for businesses and the broader economy. Higher borrowing costs mean rising investment expenses for companies, especially small and medium-sized enterprises that depend heavily on bank financing. Some may be forced to scale back production, reduce hiring, or pause expansion plans, impacting the labor market directly. Consumers will feel the effects too, through rising product prices, as companies try to offset increased financial burdens. This comes at a difficult time, with inflation still elevated and household purchasing power under pressure. Internationally, more countries, especially central banks, are shifting reserves toward gold and the euro, moving away from U.S. treasuries. This signals the emergence of a new global financial order, where the United States may no longer hold its central role as it once did.
The United States has just imposed a 20% tariff on goods from the European Union, while the United Kingdom faces a lower rate of 10%. This raises the question: why is Northern Ireland, once regarded as stable after Brexit, now at the center of this latest trade tension? On April 9, 2025, President Donald Trump announced a new wave of import tariffs, targeting nearly all of the United States' trade partners, referring to the move as Liberation Day. In this announcement, the European Union, EU, faces significantly increased costs, with a 20% tariff applied to all goods exported to the U.S., totaling over $500 billion in 2024. In contrast, the United Kingdom is subject to a lower rate of just 10%, with an export value of around $78 billion, clearly gaining a distinct advantage. The discrepancy in tariff rates between the EU and the UK creates an imbalance in the competitiveness of European countries within the US market, particularly in sectors such as pharmaceuticals, where EU exports reached $104 billion, along with premium consumer goods and technology. This also partly reflects President Trump's strategy of differentiation, as he has consistently emphasized close ties with the UK as it remains within the EU's customs union and single market under the Northern Ireland Plus Protocol, which is part of the pre-Brexit agreement. This intermediary position makes Northern Ireland especially vulnerable to disruptions arising from international trade conflicts. Should the Plus EU formally implement retaliatory tariffs, goods arriving from the Plus United Plus states into Northern Ireland would be required to comply with stricter regulations and customs inspections, adding an average of +2 to +5 days in clearance time, and increasing logistics costs by +8 to +12%. According to a report by the Plus London Plus Institute for Plus Trade Plus Policy. This means that the EU's retaliatory tariffs against the Plus United Plus states could, in effect, be enforced within Plus Northern Plus Ireland, beyond economic consequences. The issue also carries political implications, particularly for the Plus Unionist community in Northern Ireland, where more than +44% of the population supports maintaining the Union with Great Britain, and where there is ongoing concern about being separated from the rest of the Plus United Plus Kingdom. Under the Plus Windsor Plus framework, signed in the Plus March 2023 between the Plus United Plus Kingdom and the Plus European Plus Union, goods entering Plus Northern Plus Ireland are divided into 2 lanes. Plus Green Lane, applied to goods intended solely for domestic consumption within Plus Northern Plus Ireland, exempt from customs checks. Plus Red Lane, applied to goods that may enter the Plus EU market via the Plus Republic of Plus Ireland, subject to mandatory checks and compliance with Plus EU standards. This lane-based system now faces the risk of disruption if trade tensions between the Plus United States and the Plus European Plus Union continue to escalate, if the Plus EU imposes retaliatory tariffs on the Plus United States through Plus Trade Plus Defense Plus instruments, then under Plus Article 7.2.2 of the Plus Windsor Plus framework, all affected goods would be automatically redirected to the Plus Red Lane. According to estimates from the Plus EU-UK Plus Joint Plus Committee, approximately 17% of Plus U.S. imports into Plus Northern Plus Ireland in 2024, valued at more than £1.1 billion, could be impacted. All goods from the Plus United States entering Northern Plus Ireland would be subject to strict customs checks, even if there is no intention for those goods to enter the Plus EU. During a questioning session in the Plus UK Plus Parliament last week, Gavin B. Robinson, leader of the Plus Democratic Unionist Plus Party, Plus DUP, publicly expressed concern over the potential impact of the Plus EU's retaliatory tariffs on the region. He emphasized that while Plus Northern Plus Ireland remains a part of the Plus United Plus Kingdom, import regulations could still be influenced by the Plus European Plus Union if retaliatory measures were to be implemented. The disruption of internal trade caused by Plus EU policies, even though Plus Northern Plus Ireland is constitutionally part of the Plus UK, could have a negative effect on the confidence of the Plus Unionist community, which has already experienced significant strain following Plus Brexit. Case IH, a $34.5 billion. Agricultural equipment giant withdraws from the U.S. Over 3,000 American workers lose their jobs. Towns reel and farmers face part shortages mid-season. Following Case IH's exit, could this shock mark the beginning of a global restructuring wave pulling out of the United States? In early April 2025, Case IH, the tractor and agricultural machinery brand under CNH Industrial, unexpectedly issued an internal memo announcing the closure of all its manufacturing facilities in the United States. This includes the main assembly plant in Racine, Wisconsin, and the engine production center in Fargo, North Dakota. According to CNH Industrial, the decision is part of a global strategic restructuring, shifting operations to Brazil, Germany, and India to leverage lower labor costs and tariff incentives. Case IH's withdrawal immediately resulted in over 3,200 American workers losing their jobs. The move delivers a significant blow to the $34.5 billion U.S. agricultural machinery industry, already under strain from global competition and rising material costs. Post-pandemic, the National Farmers Union warned Case IH's exit puts 1 in 4 large farms in the Midwest at risk of operational disruption due to a lack of timely replacement parts. Beyond the direct layoffs, thousands of indirect jobs across the supply chain, from forges and transport firms to control software companies, are also at risk of being wiped out. In Racine, Wisconsin, where the Case IH plant had operated since 1969, over 1,800 workers were laid off. The town, once reliant on agricultural equipment manufacturing, now faces widespread economic collapse. According to the local planning department, unemployment in Racine surged from 4.3% to 11.7% within just 2 weeks of Case IH's announcement. Businesses surrounding the industrial zone reported revenue drops of 50–70%. A local bank noted 30 mortgage delinquencies in less than 10 days. In Fargo, public schools were forced to merge 12 classes and lay off 14 teachers as families began relocating. Mike Thompson, 52, an assembly line worker, told Reuters, "My dad worked here, and so did I. Now, I've lost my job, and my daughter can't continue college because she lost her scholarship from the company." The Red Racers youth team, sponsored by Case IH for 15 years, had to disband due to lack of funding. Many families have moved to other states for work, creating housing and social service crises in their new communities. Case IH's shutdown has paralyzed the U.S. parts distribution system. Sensors now take up to 6 weeks to arrive. Hydraulic hoses are nearly impossible to source. Farmers in Iowa and Illinois report equipment breakdowns they can't repair. Warranty requests are piling up. Some are resorting to 3D printing parts or switching to John Deere and Kubota machines, which now offer discounts and fast delivery. Dealerships and technicians are also severely affected. Over 400 authorized service centers face potential closure or mergers. Trust in Case IH has crumbled. Many farmers accuse the company of concealing its exit plans since 2023. Used Case IH tractors are now being sold off at 30 to 50% below market value. At agricultural fairs, Case IH's signature red color has all but disappeared, replaced by competitors handing out free merchandise to attract new customers. Vocational schools have stopped teaching Case IH repair courses. A new type of battery is drawing serious attention across the electric vehicle industry. Could this be the beginning of a new era of ultra-affordable, long-lasting, and safer electric vehicles? Contemporary Amprex technology, Co-Limited CATL. The world's leading battery manufacturer has officially unveiled its next-generation sodium-ion battery line named Naxtra. This marks a significant technological advancement in the field of energy storage. Naxtra batteries reach an energy density of 175 UHkD, the highest ever recorded for sodium-ion technology, and on par with current lithium iron phosphate LFP batteries. This allows electric vehicles powered by sodium-ion batteries to travel up to 500 kilometers on a single charge, making them viable for both pure electric and hybrid mode. Remarkably, these batteries can endure more than 10,000 charge-discharge cycles, far surpassing conventional lithium-ion batteries. This equates to a potential lifetime mileage of up to 4.8 million kilometers, significantly reducing battery replacement costs over a vehicle's lifespan. One of the most notable features of CATL's new sodium-ion battery is its ability to operate efficiently in extreme cold, addressing a long-standing challenge in EV performance. The battery can charge from 30% to 80% in just 30 minutes at minus 30 degrees C, and retains 93% of its usable capacity in such low temperatures. Even at minus 40 degrees C, the battery delivers enough power for a vehicle to maintain speeds of 120 km/h, even when the state of charge reads 0%. This breakthrough ensures greater reliability for EV users in cold climate regions such as Northern Europe, North America, and mountainous areas. It enhances road safety and user confidence by minimizing battery-related risks under harsh weather conditions. CATL's advanced charging technology enables the Naxtra battery to deliver 520 kilometers of driving range with just a 5-minute charge, with peak charging speeds reaching 12C equivalent to a power rate of approximately 1,000 kilowatts, and a consistent output of over 500 kilowatt at 50% charge level. This ultra-fast charging performance significantly reduces wait times for consumers. This experience is comparable to refueling a gasoline vehicle, addressing common concerns around EV charging time, and accelerating the broader adoption of electric mobility. The sodium-ion battery has undergone rigorous safety testing, including multi-directional compression, nail penetration, electric drilling, and saw-cut tests. In all scenarios, the battery showed no signs of smoke fire or sudden thermal spikes, an indicator of its high safety standard. CATL has achieved this by incorporating stable materials and a specialized electrolyte structure that effectively mitigates the risk of overheating or combustion. This provides additional peace of mind for EV users, particularly in the event of collisions or technical failures. With production costs around 30% lower than lithium iron phosphate, LFP batteries thanks to the use of abundant sodium instead of lithium. This innovation is expected to make electric vehicles more affordable for a wider population. Sodium being widely available and easier to extract reduces reliance on critical minerals such as lithium, cobalt, and nickel. This shift not only stabilizes raw material supply and pricing, but also reduces the environmental impact associated with mining rare metals. CATL plans to begin mass production of the sodium-ion battery in December 2025, marking a key milestone in the commercialization of this promising technology. The United States and China have entered what may be the most intense phase of confrontation to date. With record-high tariffs, the formation of new alliances, and growing pressure on nations to take sides, prices, employment, and the security of millions are being directly impacted. Is there a constructive resolution on the horizon for this geopolitical struggle? The United States has raised tariffs on electric vehicles from 25% to 100%, and on steel and aluminum to 50%, along with a 70% tariff on numerous other goods. For some products, the average tariff has surged from 54% to as high as 145%. This move is expected to drive up prices for electric vehicles, energy equipment, and electronics in the U.S., directly impacting consumer spending. American businesses that rely on Chinese components may face rising costs, leading to further pricing pressure. At the same time, the U.S. has issued warnings to other nations not to assist China in circumventing tariffs by altering the country of origin. This creates added pressure on exporting countries such as Vietnam. Without transparent traceability, the risk of shipments being held or penalized is significant. The U.S. and India have set a target to raise bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030, up from approximately $192 billion as of March 2025, according to the U.S. Trade Representative, USTR. On April 15, 2025, the two nations signed a preliminary trade agreement as part of the deal. India committed to increasing its imports of liquefied natural gas, LNG, from the U.S. to 10 million tons per year. By 2027, nearly double the current volume, in order to reduce dependence on Chinese and Russian LNG. American citizens in LNG exporting states like Texas and Louisiana may benefit through job creation and rising incomes. In India, residential electricity prices in industrial states are projected to drop from 7.6 to 7.2 rupees per kilowatt hour by 2026. Beginning February 2025, India has imposed a 12% tariff on Chinese steel, an import market worth over $2.4 billion annually, to combat dumping practices. According to Reuters, this measure is expected to protect more than 320,000 jobs in the steel industry. As a result, Indian citizens may benefit from more stable prices in electricity and steel. China has increased subsidies for its steel industry, pushing low-cost steel exports to 94 million tons in 2024. According to Bloomberg, this surge has placed significant pressure on the steel sectors of the US, the EU, and India. Numerous factories have been forced to scale back production directly affecting more than 320,000 workers. As of January 2025, China has suspended the export of rare earth materials worth $780 million to South Korea. This has impacted more than 37 defense companies, currently collaborating with Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. According to Yonhap, several production lines for radar and air defense systems have been temporarily halted due to raw material shortages in Canada. Public concern has grown over data security and electoral transparency, following allegations that China interfered in the national election by spreading disinformation aimed at discrediting 5 candidates known for their tough stance on Beijing, according to CBC. The scale of this interference has been likened to that of Russia's involvement in the US elections in 2016. The primary objective of Trump is to prevent China from using third-party countries to bypass US tariffs. In this context, China has sought to engage Southeast Asian nations but has encountered resistance. Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand have publicly stated they will not serve as transit hubs for Chinese goods. Notably, Vietnam signed a contract to purchase 26 F-16 Block 70-72 fighter jets worth $2.56 billion, marking a significant step forward in defense cooperation with the U.S., according to Defense News. In response, China canceled its order of 48 Boeing 737 MAX aircraft valued at $6.5 billion. However, just 2 weeks later, Indonesia and the Philippines placed orders to purchase the entire batch, as reported by Nikkei Asia. American farmers are enduring a brutal economic fallout from trade wars with exports, collapsing production costs, soaring and no solutions in sight. Can the U.S. agriculture sector survive this disaster? Sorghum exports to China have dropped 95%. In just 2 months of 2025, U.S. sorghum exports plummeted from 1.4 million tons to just 78,000 tons compared to the previous year. China once bought 90% of U.S. sorghum, but the market has vanished almost overnight. Other major crops like soybeans, corn, and wheat are also suffering, with prices falling and stockpiles growing. This sharp decline in demand is leaving U.S. farmers with millions of tons of unsold crops in silos, significantly hurting cash flow. The lack of buyers is pushing family-owned farms to the brink of extinction, especially as prices continue to plummet with no market alternatives in sight. China has raised tariffs to over 125% on a broad range of U.S. agricultural products, including soybeans, pork, corn, cotton, and dairy. In addition, the EU has also imposed 25% tariffs on key U.S. farm exports, like soybeans and processed pork, in retaliation for U.S. steel tariffs. Countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Russia are now filling the gaps left by the U.S., signing long-term trade deals that are shifting global supply chains. Permanently, farmers are seeing their once dominant positions in global markets erode with tariffs, pricing U.S. goods out of major markets like China. The agricultural sector faces long-term structural losses that will be hard to recover from. American farmers are now competing with cheaper products from other nations, leaving them vulnerable to further losses. A New York dairy farmer is facing an additional $2,200 in costs for livestock feed due to new tariffs on Canadian imports. Prices for fertilizers, seeds, and machinery are all on the rise because of tariffs on U.S. trading partners, putting immense pressure on farmers' budgets. Meanwhile, crop prices are falling, creating a double squeeze on U.S. farmers' profits. The escalating costs of production are making it increasingly difficult for farmers to turn a profit. With the prices of essential farm inputs like feed and fertilizer rising, and crop prices declining, many farmers are struggling to cover their basic operating expenses. The economic pressure is mounting, threatening their ability to stay afloat. Rural banks are warning of rising default risks as farmers face growing pressure from unstable crop prices and mounting debt. Many farmers are hesitant to sign contracts due to market volatility, fearing they will grow crops no one will buy. Despite some